Well, here we are sat in the cockpit of BMW's new CS1 concept car, and I'm joined by BMW's Director of Design, Bangle. Chris, tell us a little bit about the car.
Well, this is our foray into what a small car from BMW might look like. A lot of fun, passion, like any BMW should be. And also an idea from our styling direction that we've shown with our previous concept vehicles.
How much of this then is a pointer towards future production BMWs, perhaps the 1 Series?
Well, there's 3 or 4 points on it that are quite interesting. First, the size alone shows that when BMW does a car of this dimension, they're thinking about this type of a look and feel, which is a really kind of an elegant little sporty car. And secondly, that the design direction for this is what our future products towards this end of the informal spectrum, as we call it, would be. Very surface-oriented, a lot of dynamic in the surfaces, change, movement. On our concept vehicle, X-Coupe, we called it flame surfacing. And here you see it far more refined, you know, a car that's a lot closer to what a production car would be. And then there's the idea of how can lightness be a part of our life in a car? Look at this interior. It's not made of solids, it's made of light surfaces from under the hood to in the interior. It's that whole theme of lightness.
That's interesting. One thing I was quite interested listening to the press conference, we talked about this being halfway between the X-Coupe and the Z9 concept car. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I wouldn't quite go so far to call it halfway in between. I think Dr. Gershel mentioned that it was a lot closer to one end than the other. But we put 2 concept cars on the open a couple of years ago. One was the Z9 Coupe, and the other was the X-Coupe last year. And both of those cars were quite dramatic, and they had different design directions that actually were the endpoints of one long blend. And so now as we bring cars successively into this family, as this car would be a lot closer to the X-Coupe in terms of its youthful spontaneity, small dimensions, surface orientation, we can see how these vehicles as a BMW would work. And if you work your way up towards, let's say, a 7 Series, you can see its relationship to the Z9.
Can you tell us what you mean by surface orientation?
Well, a solid volume can be seen as maybe 6 sides of a cube, right? And maybe you see it as that. You see it as a cube with 6 sides. Some cars look like that. They look like maybe a rounded off box. But this is a car where the surface itself takes on a dynamic, on a movement. The way the light plays across, it makes a change, a dynamic direction. Instead of a stacked up set of wedges, like maybe dynamic was in the 80s, now we have movement, twist in the surface. It brings the light across it in different ways, sort of like fabric does. And that's a surface orientation towards excitement, towards passion, towards dynamic, that you can't just do with a big solid alone.
Some BMW design, particularly perhaps the new 7 Series, has come under a lot of criticism of late. Has that surprised you at all?
Well, I think there's come on a lot of praise as well. And so any car that takes a new step, shows really a new milestone, is going to come in for a lot of scrutiny, and a lot of people are going to be shocked by it. And of course, we probably come into more scrutiny than anybody else because we led. I mean, anybody else who takes that first step is going to be the first one there. And like they say, you're going to be out in front of the pack, well, then you got to break all the wind yourself. And I think this is okay, it's fair, but what I really like is, as the 7 stays on the market now, it becomes shown to people, people can drive it more, they see it on the road, they realize really how great this thing is on the road, and that it is a classic design, which you don't just get from the pages of a magazine with a spy photo.
One thing that's been said about the 7 and some of the concepts, particularly the Z9, is that they've been striking cars, but perhaps not pretty cars. Do you think that it's often difficult to make a pretty car striking?
Well, I think this is a car that's very striking, very pretty, but I believe that this car, like the Z9, it belongs to a rather deeper design philosophy. There's a really great quote that's out there. I wish I could say who it's from, but I find it dramatic. And that is, if you look for truth, you'll find beauty. If you look for beauty, you'll find vanity. And I think all our cars, we're looking for truth. There's a truth to the Z9, there's a truth to the 7, and as you warm to them and you understand them, you really find that beauty that is there, and that makes for a classic. This car, there's an enormous amount of truth in this as well. But it has a spontaneity as well that this type of an open car lets people warm to very fast.
Are we likely to see this car in production in a couple of years' time?
How close are we to production? Well, we're that close, right? Well, I think you'll see a lot of the spirit of this car in the 1 Series.
Sure.
Quite obviously, we've been working on the 1 Series for a while, so we kind of know what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are some challenges here to the industry as a whole. You know, how will we do surface orientation that aren't going to be solved in a single generation? But when we do, it'll give us a lot of advantages in the future.
And one thing also picking up on the press conference that we heard, there's going to be more differentiation between the BMW products. So at the moment, 3, 5, all 7 series look very similar. This is actually going to be a change in the future, that every car will look very different?
Well, as I've said, they'll look different only in as far as they belong to an extended family now, instead of being basically twins in different scales as they were in the past. So you'll still see the same relationship of BMW-ness in them, but they'll be far more their own individual personality, kind of like our motorcycles. If you look at our motorcycles, they're unmistakably all BMW. Dave Robb and his design team, they do a super job on that, but at the same time, each one is quite a specific product.
But remaining a BMW is obviously at the heart of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what is a BMW? It's that dynamic driving fun.